Councilmember Mitch Lindemann,
Here.
Councilmember Dania Acosta,
Present.
Councilmember Ray Shelton,
Present.
Councilmember Michael Baldenegro,
Present.
Councilmember Jose Grijalva,
Here.
City Manager Ana Urquijo,
Present.
City Attorney Dennis Fitzgibbon, City Treasurer Luis Pedrosa, Mitch Lindemann,
Yeah, that's. I'm
City
here.
Attorney Fitzgibbons.
I'm here.
Hi, thank you, Dennis. And City Treasurer Luis Pedrosa.
Present.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the record. Mayor Pro Tempore Marco Morales is excused.
Thank you very much. Item number 3, persons wishing to address the council in writing or verbally on any item not on the agenda. Do we have any requests this evening? Or-
If not have any public participation requests.
Fill it out.
Is there something called to the public?
Yes.
It's not filled out, Mr. Mayor, but if you would like to allow Mr. Steve Hufford to speak.
Reverend. Good evening.
How's it going?
Well, thank you.
I thought if it's 6:30.
That's a minute fast. So
Perfect.
you're good.
I just wanted to make sure that you all didn't lose the handout I gave you last week. And if anybody else needs a new copy, I can give it to you. I also have enlarged copies if you're interested in that. I just want to make it clear that when you take the commercial sector of a town and pull it from the downtown and put it somewhere else, you're essentially taking a large part of the development away from the downtown. And my concern, and we've seen this happen for about 30 years now. Go ask Wilcox. When you take the commercial aspect away from the downtown, you will, in fact, make the downtown suffer. And that would be my concern, is that the economic draw of the port out at James Branch Road will, in fact, create 2 towns. And that the downtown will suffer because there will be the economic drivers will be there and not in the downtown. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Item number 4A, streetscape project concepts or presentation update on A, streetscape project concepts. Mr. Kiko.
Thank you. Mayor, members of the council, we're happy today to bring forth 2 concepts which staff will present. We'll start with the streetscape, but I want to give a little preface before we start on some of the downtown revitalization efforts that we've been focusing on. As you recall, in January, we met so that council can guide staff and present us with your priorities. Downtown revitalization was one of 6 priorities. So we've been working very hard to establish different elements which were discussed in January. Some, as you know, were the entertainment district, the expanded zoning for our historic area, historic preservation overlays, and we've been working on examining existing facade programs. But what didn't seem to be, and of course we have the streetscape program. So we have a few other areas other than streetscape. We've come kind of to a halt due to some funding constraints. Obviously, we've been able to meet internally and came up with some strategies, which I am providing here today, and then through the first presentation. But then what was a disconnect is some of the the gems we have downtown that we also fear losing and wanting to save them. And that was part of our discussion early on as well. So we've done a lot of work over the summer. I met with some city managers as part of my summer conferences and found 2 cities that are doing exactly that, some historic preservation. Not one in a downtown area and one in a commercial area. And so we met with them and we were able to bring back some concepts as to how they get around some of the concerns we thought we had and were limited by. So we're doing some real deep dives and trying to figure out a future there. And today we're just trying to initiate those concepts for you and kind of get feedback and making sure, you know, that it's something that we're on the right track to preserve that policy area that you guided us on, which is downtown revitalization. So first, we're going to start with Damien, our economic development and CMO project coordinator, will present on the streetscape project. And then we'll follow with the next option.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. So tonight I'll be presenting on the downtown streetscape, giving you an update and background and where we stand today with that project. So the current streetscape plan actually started back in 2019, where city officials began gathering community feedback regarding the downtown streetscape. They met with the Downtown Merchants Association in August of 2019 to get their ideas on what should be included in the streetscape plan, where the merchant group cited things like parking, addressing absentee land owners, property owners, plantings, the effect it would have on our historic district, street vendors, food trucks, city bus routes, lighting, banners, seatings, fountains, crosswalks, gateways and pedestrian ways. The city then held a downtown revitalization workshop in October 2019, where the participants were asked to rank their preference on 13 design elements via a visual survey. At that workshop, 30 surveys were submitted, which was then used, the results from that and the subsequent analysis was used to do a request for proposal for the downtown streetscape design build in March 2020. The bid was then awarded to J2 Engineering and Environmental Design in November of 2020, with the contract price of $93,985, and included a scope of work to develop a plan by determining and conceptually designing suitable projects that enhance the streetscape of the downtown area. The initial focus area was G Avenue between Pan American and 5th Street, and on 10th Street between G Avenue and D Avenue. It was later determined that the focus area should be on G Avenue between 9th and 12th Streets. And the scope of work also included a 30% schematic design for the G Avenue focus area between 9th and 12th Street. And that's just construction plans, basically. And in fiscal year 21-22, Mayor and Council budgeted $300,000 for the streetscape project. Since then, there's been a lot of public participation efforts. And one of those major key ones was the having community stakeholder meetings, which started in November of 2021. And that group was comprised of downtown merchants and property owners from the downtown. The meetings lasted through February of 2022. Since the February 2022 meetings with the public community stakeholder participants, the city, along with J2, held public meetings to get feedback on the conceptual design for the streetscape, And that those public meetings happened in March of 2022. 17 community members attended, and we received 4 completed feedback questionnaires during those meetings. Thereafter, staff published a community survey for 2 weeks, where we posted it on our social media accounts, posted it on our City of Douglas website to get feedback from the greater community, and we received 176 responses. And following the public feedback period, we became aware of other community efforts in regard to the streetscape plan in form of a petition against the current designs, calling for G Avenue to be brought back to the pre-1979 conditions or aesthetics, and asking for the city to prioritize the preservation of the buildings downtown. It is important to note that there was a gap in communication there, as staff had already been working on a solution to address the preservation of the buildings downtown, which will be presented after this presentation. And I also wanted to point out that we absolutely welcome continued feedback as we go through this process. So they could reach out to anyone here at the city to give their feedback. And I could give my details later if anyone would like. So where we currently stand and the next steps after the public meeting, we met with J2 to discuss the 30% schematic design. And we were informed that $18,417 remained on the current contract. Staff then requested an estimate for 100% schematic design on the G Avenue focus area, which is on G Avenue between 9th and 12th Street. And we're told that the remainder, 18,417 on the current contract, can be allocated towards the 100% schematic design. The 100% schematic design cost would be $91,583. And if we were to reallocate those $18,417, the remaining balance would be $73,166 through an amended contract. Can be done through amendment. During those discussions, staff also requested a cost estimate for the construction of the G Avenue focus area. And G2 came back with a conceptual opinion of probable construction costs, which showed an estimate of $8,158,803.32. Looking at that, staff revised the estimate to reflect the phased approach. And the revised estimate would reflect $3,910,153.72. Using this figure, staff submitted a congressional directed spending funding request for $2.8 million for the Douglas Downtown Streetscape project. However, the project was not selected or recommended for funding for the federal budget. But we will continue to submit this project in subsequent cycles. So probably next federal fiscal year, we'll also submit this. And for the construction cost estimate that G2 originally sent us, they itemized it by sections, which I'll show you here. The first was general items and general conditions with an estimated cost of $977,000. And that includes things like mobilization, utility potholing, construction surveys, layouts, as-builts, and things of that nature. The next item would be the removal of hardscape, the removals of the hardscape and the demolition, which includes the asphalt removal, curb and gutter removal, D&G removal, and tree removals on the G Avenue focus area. The next item would be roadway paving and pedestrian hardscapes, which comes at an estimated cost of $2,138,934. And that includes things like asphalt, concrete roadway paving width upgrade, the roadway colored stamped asphalt, between 9th and 10th Street. As you can see over here, there's some diagrams that could give you a visual what it would look like. The crosswalk colored or stamped asphalt pattern, sidewalk pavers and paving, litho mosaic accent tile medallions, siding and striping, slurry seal and striping, and curbs and gutters reconstructed. The next item would be the utilities, coming at an estimated cost of $7,000. And that includes the water meters and backflow prevention for the irrigation system, adjusted electrical junction boxes to sidewalk grade, miscellaneous utility line relocations and adjustments, and any fire hydrant upgrades or replacements should that be needed. The next item would be the landscaping with an estimated cost of $62,049.75 for things like trees, ground cover, shrubs, any accents, and decomposed granite. The next item would be irrigation, which would be an irrigation system with an estimated cost of $88,000, which would include an irrigation controller. Next item would be the electrical work with an estimated cost of $1,322,000. And that's for the meters, service cabinets, lighting systems, and any utility company costs associated with doing that. Refurbishing, painting, or adjusting traffic signals, roadway light poles with banners, banner arms to place banners, pedestrian light poles, downtown speaker or sound system, downtown Wi-Fi system, auxiliary or lighting system upgrades. That includes the entry monument lighting system and the more important conduit wire and trenching. Next item listed was site amenities with an estimated cost of $1,458,000. And those are things like benches, chairs, bike racks, trash cans, planters, the entry monuments, and any signage or wayfinding, and shade structures at intersections. So all that listed would come in at a project subtotal $6,276,002.55, with an added 30% contingency of $1,882,800.77, with a grand total of $8,158,803.32. So taking that, staff revised this cost estimate and removed a few things from there to try to bring down the price of the construction cost. So I'll itemize the same sections with varied amounts that would be reflected on the revised estimate. So the first item, general items, general conditions, $184,000. Essentially, that's just the mobilization from the construction company. Partnership with the city, we'd be able to do a lot of the work that comes with the general conditions piece. The next part, the removal and hardscape demolition. So that would remain the same cost of $160,018.80. The next item, that roadway paving and pedestrian hardscape. Sorry. So that would come down to $1,761,242. And that would be removing things like this colored or stamped asphalt patterns on the bump outs, as well as the street on between 9th and 10th Street. Next would be the utilities, which would come in at a cost of $30,000. And we would leave the electrical junction boxes and any miscellaneous utility line relocations or adjustments, removing the meters, and also the fire hydrants or any fire hydrant upgrades. The next item in landscaping, we kept the same at $62,049.75. No change there. For the irrigation, also no change. It would come in at $88,000. We would have to put in a completely new irrigation system, and that's why we had to keep that. For the electrical, this would see the biggest change for an estimated cost of $250,000. Basically removing everything that was listed there. I crossed everything out to reference from the previous slide. And we would just keep the infrastructure piece of conduit, wiring and trenching. And for site amenities, basically, this would be part of the phased approach where it would show us a savings with an estimated cost of $224,000. The project subtotal would then be $3,007,810.55. Also adding a 30% contingency of $902,343.17, which would bring a grand total to $3,910,153.72. So staff has recommendations for funding solutions to get this project completed. The first would be using the ARPA funding, the remaining ARPA funding of $1.045 million and set it aside for the streetscape project, while budgeting the remainder costs through 2 fiscal years. Also using the $300,000 that are currently budgeted for the streetscape project to fund 100% schematic design of G Avenue focus area, as well as small projects that can be handled now. The remaining balance, should we do the 100% schematic design, would be $226,834. And the small projects would include things like decorative lighting, painting our current green light poles black, adding benches and getting banners, things of that sort. Getting the 100% schematic design would make it more palatable for grant funding. So we will continue to seek grant funding to cover any funding gaps. Currently, there aren't any grants out there for projects like this, but we feel that in the next fiscal year, there will be through the bill. And here is a QR code for the community survey results from that followed the March 2022 public meetings. If you were interested in reading them, you could go through them. There, I can just give you a quick rundown on some of the answers. Just a brief summary on the more substantive answers. Sorry, more substantive questions. First question was, as you look into the future of the downtown, what do you think it should look like? The top 3 answers were businesses, restaurants, and shops, having live music, entertainment, and events, and also addressing the roads and parking. The next question was, are there elements you think should not be included in the downtown? Top 3 answers were no. They didn't have any response. The buildings, the abandoned buildings, and the vacant buildings should be addressed. And don't add any new buildings or modern style buildings. The next question was what do you feel is the biggest challenge facing the downtown area? Top 3 answers were there's no business, we need to bring back business, and there's a lack of stores. Next one was there's a lot of empty buildings and vacant lots, and that there's no entertainment or attractions to bring people downtown. Following that, it was what do you believe is the single most important thing that should be part of the project to help spur development and interest in downtown Douglas to create a vibrant, attractive area? Number 1 answer was to bring entertainment or attractions, to bring new businesses or stores. and also to embrace the history and culture of our downtown. And then the final question was, is there any information you'd like to provide to assist us in our design? There were suggestions for attractions and entertainment. The next answer was no, they didn't have any recommendations. And then the third top answer was to beautify the downtown. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Is there any questions from the council for Mr. Dorame?
Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Lindeman.
is this what came out of the, all of those meetings and what the, architect came up with?
Right, everything that you see around you and everything that was described here.
Well, I'm very disappointed in seeing this because I've said, when I went to those meetings, that I don't appreciate tearing up our downtown. It's not going to save it. Don't like the bump outs, they take away the parking. I just don't like the concept in itself. Now, I'm kind of disappointed in that. Now, and further, this is way too much money to be spending for those type of issues when, and I'll say it again, I know I've said it before to the council in the meeting. I lived through the 70s when they wanted to make downtowns walkable and accessible, and it doesn't work. It doesn't work. It kills downtown because people want to go down there, they want to drive down there, they want to park, they want to go to a store, they want to do the shopping, and then they want to go. Now, if we get entertainment, fine, there's something down there. I just don't like the whole concept, and I don't like the two examples right away when you come into town. I like what we have. And in my view, if we do something like this, you've essentially destroyed the historic value of our downtown. So that's my 2 cents.
Anyone else from the council? Yes, Mr. Shelton.
Was any of the University of Arizona design put into this? That we had what, 10, 12 years ago?
Councilmember Shelton, Mr. Mayor, no, I don't believe the U of A was part of this committee
design.
feedback.
I like. Once
giant.
I like.
No,
Like,
it's braver.
I liked it, I think, much better. And I've noticed lately, it's hard to get a parking spot in some of these areas right around downtown. So sort of agree with Mr. Lindeman. I really, remember that one? That was I think a very feasible one, and it was decorated downtown and so on and so forth. And I know those students put a number of hours into that, and so that's.
Thank you, Mr.
my
Shelton.
3 cents.
Anyone else?
Mayor.
Yes, Ms. Costa.
In this proposal, is all of that work contracted out? Is that what it's?
For the cost estimates,
Yes.
Councilmember Acosta, Mr. Mayor, no, it's not contracted out. That was just an estimate that we requested so that we can go and request congressional directed spending funding through our congressional districts.
But I think what she's asking is that the pricing was based on contracting it out.
Yes, so the current architect J2 has their own branch of contracting. So they pulled the estimates from their contractors.
Okay. And I know in some of the discussions and meetings that I've been a part of, we've talked about, yes, phasing all of these things in, but I don't want to say all, but phasing upgrades to downtown, things that are truly needed, that merchants and people that have buildings downtown have talked about, like the electricity. I know Food Truck Fridays, they had a hard time getting electrical power out there without generators or without plugging into businesses that were basically giving their electricity for free. So I just, I feel underwhelmed by this project or by this plan as it's being presented. It just seems like a whole lot of money that we don't have. And a whole lot of money that if we could get, maybe could go to better, more useful, more utility. It just seems like we're trying to revitalize by maybe modernizing something that shouldn't be, because of just our historical designation for that area. So that's just my thoughts on that.
Thank you, Mrs. Costa. Anyone else?
Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Baldonado, please.
Mr. Waterman, when you did a survey with all the merchants, did they agree to the streetscape or did they have any rejection to some of the ideas that was presented to them?
Councilmember Baldonado, Mr. Mayor, when this was presented to the merchants of downtown, we didn't receive any negative feedback, just more positive feedback on the designs themselves. They think it'd be good for the downtown is what they told us.
Thank you. Anything else, Mr. Baldonado?
I don't know if we have the ideas to move forward or should we move backward? You know, the thing is that we start with the project and we seem to get a stalemate every time we decide on something here. Either we proceed with something or we go back 30 years where everything was stagnant back in the day. We can't replace PD. And if modernizing downtown is going to bring more business in here, we don't know. Or leaving it the way it is, if it's going to be frequent, we don't know. We can't tell the future. So either we go with this project or get something similar to this project. It's up to us, whatever we decide.
Thank you, Mr. Baldonado. Mr. Grijalva, do you have anything?
No, thank you, Mayor. Whatever the citizens want, whatever the residents want. With me, you know, I'm always downtown, but each merchant has, like Mr. Dorame said, I've heard positive things as far as wanting to do something. It is pricey. It's pricey not because of, you know, we raised the prices because of inflation and everything that's going on with the economy. Maybe phasing something in, I guess, would probably be best to see, you know, if we can, you know, if we have enough money to finish it off or what we can do, but I said it is pricey, but you know, to point just to end this, would that be in the best interest of the downtown merchants and Douglas as a whole? I don't know about that. So I think we need to do something, maybe to reach out to the community again. I don't know. As far as underwhelmed, overwhelmed, I went to those meetings, so everything that's going on here, I already know, so I'm not really overwhelmed or underwhelmed. But I think whatever the community wants, that's what we should do. And if they want this, why not?
Thank you, Mr. Grijalva. Yes, Miss. Oh, do you have something, Mr. Shelton, please?
How many blocks, I'm sure I missed this, and I want to make sure, how many blocks would this be on the GM?
So it's between Councilmember Shelton, Mr. Mayor, it's between 9th Street and 12th Street, so 3 blocks.
That answer your question.
Well, how about 10?
That's for the phased approach.
So that's part of the phased approach. That would be from G Avenue to E Avenue.
Okay, yeah, that's.
Now, yeah, it initially was to D Avenue and then put it out to E Avenue.
Thank you. Mr. Kiko, please.
Thank you. And thank you all for your comments. That's the purpose of today's session it's just presentation only and getting feedback for direction. Just a few commentaries also and observations myself is, you know, the direction we received in January also was with the inspiring vision of all of you collectively was to grow, but grow the right way. And to make bold decisions for our future, preserving our heritage and enhancing our future. And I don't believe that any of what we incorporated with J2 does away with the historical presence, but the input from you is very important, and we can always go back to maybe address some of the areas. My bigger comment, I think, is, you know, I was around a long time before my recent appointment, and I've seen, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars go towards these efforts, and then they sit on the shelf because when we get to this point, we don't execute. I wasn't here when we made the decision for the J2, so I don't know the complete concept or context that was required. But I value all of your comments, and I think we need to do the right thing for Douglas, and that could mean many things. Douglas revitalization and Douglas streetscape was a huge conversation that we had in January, which is why we continued in this direction. Now, many of the elements that you saw, and I know they're tiny there, we'll give you the presentation so you can look at the itemized list. And just for clarification, these are estimates. This would still have to go out to bid if we get to that point. And this is not necessarily using general fund money. These are ARPA monies. And if you recall from our March or April visit from Senator Kelly, it says never in our lifetime will we see the availability of funds that are out there for us now. And while the one congressional spending request didn't go our way here, we submitted 4 and 3 are being moved forward and still in the process. But so we are getting a lot of attention right now as the city of Douglas, primarily because of the port of entry, obviously, but we have many opportunities. Staff is attending a class. It's the term just escaped my mind, but it's a boot camp class for some of these initiatives moving forward to be able to be ready to apply for future grants. And you all went to the league conference and you saw all the different pots of money that are available, and small cities are just lining up and trying to figure out how to make their requests and bids for some of these monies. We strengthen our opportunities for these types of funding options by presenting 100% engineering designs towards something for the future. Now, keep in mind that this design includes a major piece of reconstruction of the road, despite whatever we agree to, whether it's a lamp post or a bench or bump outs or no bump outs. That road has not been looked at for, I believe, 20 to 22 years. And the storm drainage underneath is causing some issues as well. So I'm going to say that the majority of what we need to do anyway. We can look at bump outs again. That's the purpose of our meeting here. I want to also state that, you know, some of our smaller cities in Arizona have made the huge expanse of these streetscape projects because they want to be that tourist attraction, and they've done it very successful. A good example is Winslow, Arizona, and they've used J2. The reason I know of Winslow because J2 uses them in their, you know, in the reference list. But we've looked at some of the types of things that they have, and whether it's bump outs or stamped asphalt, you know, those are things that are not final yet. My bigger concern right now is the pursuit of those available funds, which we may never have again. And what does the future downtown look like in terms of the streetscape? We're able to take some of our monies right now that were set aside for you know, lighting and the smaller things. But when we look at the infrastructure, the new electricity, you know, we can do a lot of that in-house. So we still brought it back down, but I just wanted to state that a majority of that was to mill and overlay the road, which is very necessary as well.
Thank you, Mr. Keel. Mr. Lindeman.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. I believe Mr. Shelton and Mrs. Morales and myself were on the council at the time that we partnered with the county and saved the PD Mercantile building and put that into new use. And so that was what we did on G Avenue. And going along with that concept, I think that we should start doing the smaller things like the Grand Theater. Let's save that and have that on G Avenue rather than try and do the entire massive. Like I said, I don't like the bump outs. I don't like the pavements that are going to be ripped up because that destroys the historic value as far as I'm concerned. But, you know, take each diamond in the raw that we have and refurbish that. And that would be my thinking. We can take the Chase Bank, we can do something with that, and all of these piecemeal things that will enhance. And of course, growth is going to come anyway, as soon as we get that port going. Now, I do disagree that the Port of Entry is going to have two towns because that's for commercial only. And we're going to still have the pedestrians and the cars in town. And so they're not going to be mixed. Now, they might have some businesses out there for truckers, but I'm thinking that the town is still going to thrive when we have that refurbished too. So that'd be my point.
Thank you, Mr. Lindeman. Do we have any requests from the public for
Yes.
comment? Mr. Braverman, I know you asked to speak on both issues, A and B. Would you like to do it together, or would you like to have three? Would you like to have 3 minutes on this one and 3 minutes on the other one?
Yes.
I'm asking you. You'd like to have 3 and 3?
Or just 6.
Okay, Mr. Braverman, you have your.
I've been working for 15 months now. I've collected this evidence, hold this box up, will you? Hold it. Pick it up.
It's here. It's here.
You've already picked it up. Mr. Hubert, would you like to?
No, I wouldn't. Thank you very much.
I just want anybody to think I'm telling tales out of school. I haven't done my due diligence for 15 months. I can. All right. I bought a building on G 1101G. Do exactly what Mr. Ramey just said, that people want to see, which is attractive. Some of you might not know this, but
Excuse me, Mr. Braverman, we'd like to have you recorded, so if you could go to the microphone. So that not only,
put my back to people, it's rude, but yes, sir.
but Mr. Braverman, let me educate a little bit on this issue.
Thank you.
You asked to address the council,
All right.
and that's why you're right there facing us.
Okay, yes, sir.
Thank you.
I have the biggest collection of Last Suppers in the world. Undisputed. I can bring people down here all day and have people walking up and down the street. And with Art Car World, which I've been trying to get him more involved with the city council, and with AP, which is underutilized, we can have a day in Douglas. I gave each one of you a day in Douglas sheet. Damien DeRamy at a meeting with Jennifer Smith said there is no day in Douglas. That's the type of thing I'm up against. Now, for this, just to let you know how involved I am in this, this is mine. I own the URLs of this. I own the Facebook page. I created that design and I donated it to the city. When it was put on these documents, I was given 1 hour and 40 minutes to come to a meeting to review that. That's not transparency and involving people. As I tried to explain to the city manager, Damien and Jennifer Smith and others, I found that people didn't understand that we had a gold mine in G Avenue. If we fix G Avenue from the wall to Pan American, everything else falls into place.
with the budget of this, which I would consider a fraud. These things could all be bought at Target. Is anyone not familiar with the Target stores? I also dealt with J2 with the town that I moved from, Tolleson, Arizona. They put zero effort into this. They asked for input. I tried to give them input. They said they were not getting input from the people of this city. And then Damien has now stopped that by demanding to J2 that I have phone logs made in how long I can talk to them, when I talk to them, what it's about. And I have emails to prove all this. There's no hearsay. Then they told me if I want any information from them anymore, I had to get it from this gentleman. One of the sheets you have there shows you what my petition was about. My petition was attempted to be stopped by the city illegally by taking my First Amendment rights, by asking me in writing to stop circulating the petition. If you look at the synopsis of the petition, you can see that even people that don't like each other all agreed that they don't like this. They don't want this money spent. I've gone to the Arizona Office of Tourism, the Film Commission, many companies that can bring grants that now the city is dealing with because of my efforts. Stantec. Here's the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality. I have not done this in a vacuum. Have you heard of the Arizona 80? How many of you know the Arizona 80? Do any of you? The Arizona 80 is a foundation that was created by the tourism people of Benson and Tombstone. And they gave up giving their $15,000 a year to the CCTE because it is fraudulent and only cares about Sierra Vista. Damien Doremi told me they don't do anything for the city, and they told me that Douglas does not engage with them. When I come in to bring the Arizona 80 in, which we have the flyers and pamphlets that they have created, Damien Doremi didn't like that either. And if you go out and look, those pamphlets are not around. Simply look at the page there that tells you, which is what they said is not true, that tells you that the Chamber of Commerce, the Historical Society, Borderland Chevy, multiple leaders and business owners and building owners on G are absolutely against this fraud. For $4 million, which is what they're proposing, we could buy the Gadsden and get that back in line and fix up G Avenue from the wall to Pan American. It's roofs, it's glass, it's paintings, all the research. I asked you to pick up there, and many of you, or a couple of you, didn't want to because it was too heavy. All says that they want to see the historical old town. They want to see culture. We do not want to see 3 blocks for $4 million covered in stuff bought from Target
30 seconds remaining.
in the 6 minutes. I really think there's no one really here. Would anyone like to advocate?
You guys don't need help.
Only if you submitted a paperwork.
Oh, next.
Anyway, you all have my card. If you would like to look at the box and review it, plus look at my texts, emails, and phone logs for a year that show me working on revitalizing downtown Douglas and bringing in AZ80, Stantec, the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality, the Office of Tourism, Greater Douglas Chamber of Commerce, IDA, Douglas Merchant Network. They have all signed the petition. Every one of them has signed the petition. That is not accurate to what these people just told you.
Thank you, Mr. Rayburn. Mr. Steve Helfrich, please.
Where do we start? These are difficult issues and they can't be solved in 3 minutes. They can't be solved in an hour. I can't, like I told you, I came down here on a whim. I don't know why I came down here, but I am an excellent urban designer. And I have been working in the trenches for 30 years, fixing up whole buildings. And I would love to sit down with you and walk a project that I just got finished with, which is Grand Avenue, which happens to be Highway 80 from McDowell, from Van Buren to Roosevelt. And I can show you building by building what took me 15 years and a whole community of people to build. Ray, you said we started, one of your comments at the council was, you know, we're 15 years and we haven't done anything. It takes 15 years. This process doesn't happen overnight, but we started. And Mitch, you are right. It's one building at a time. We fix one building. The grant's a little difficult because I think we need 35 million for the grant. But I would also have, I don't want to disagree with you about the port, but we have to have that. We have to have that discussion, and that discussion needs to happen at the planning and zoning level, not here. I made my presentation about the slag heap to planning and zoning, and I'm going to be able to get that on the agenda so we can have some serious discussion about land use planning. And then my final thing would be, I disagree with the idea that the downtown can't be manipulated and made into to give it a sense of place. I have two examples. Mayor Hewish, I spent 5 years in San Luis Obispo. And that's where I went to school. And this was pre-Walmart, so it was very much
30
different.
seconds remaining.
It was very much, can I please just let me finish? San Luis Obispo closed off their street every Thursday night. And people came down and kids played in the downtown. It was wonderful. We had experiments, it was really a wonderful place. And it still is because of the work they did when they were the size of Douglas. Okay, so that's one thing. The other town is Grand Junction, Colorado.
Time.
And I think Grand Junction, Colorado, I think every one of you, in fact, I will buy you a ticket. I'll buy the whole council airplane ticket to go to Grand Junction and talk to their planners and talk to their downtown and walk what they see and what they have done. And then come back. And then I'll fly you to, San Luis Obispo, and you go to San Luis Obispo and you'll see what it's very much the same thing. And the reason why I have traveled all over the Southwest and what is beautiful about about G Avenue is that it's untouched.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Rich.
so
Appreciate
please, and I'm here to help.
Thank you.
And as far as I'm concerned, this is a waste. This hasn't evolved. They spent $73,000 on this. This is outrageous.
Thank you. Mr.
Thank you. I'd like to encourage staff, if you could print out the presentation this evening so each member of the council can have that. And if you would please provide your written comments to staff for their review so that we can see which direction we're leaning towards and how we can approach this. Because I, for one, want to do something and we need to figure out what that is. And we're going to move on to the next item if we could. Item 4B, presentation update, the discussion on historic preservation program for downtown Douglas. Mr. Kehoe.
Yes, as I mentioned before, Mayor, members of the council, this is an update on staff's summer project and homework to preserve historic buildings, some of our gems downtown. So Jennifer Smith, our Community Services and Economic Development Director, will take this on.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Mr. Mayor, you mind if we lower the lights up front so I can read off of this presentation?
Nobody knows how to do it.
Okay, thank you. So for tonight's presentation, I am going to walk you through our downtown revitalization efforts, a policy priority of mayor and council. I'm also going to introduce to you a historic preservation program as an additional element to our downtown revitalization efforts. And at the end of the presentation, seek feedback from mayor and council on exploring a historic preservation program best suited for Douglas. So just before this presentation, you heard about our downtown revitalization efforts. It's a team effort. There's a lot that goes into it. And with the first one being the streetscape design. So the streetscape design acknowledges the importance of an attractive, vibrant, and walkable streetscape, typically the quality of the street and the visual effects of the downtown area that you're experiencing when you walk downtown. The city of Douglas also offers a facade program. So this facade program was started many years ago. What this program does, it provides an opportunity for business owners, commercial property owners to improve the appearance of building facades and storefronts. Approved projects will entitle the property owner to receive funding for 50% of the project cost, not to exceed $2,500, excuse me. Also, some really cool things that have happened recently. Mayor and council finalized a historic preservation overlay zoning district by ordinance. So this amendment that was changed the code, encouraged adaptive reuse and allowed visible activating land uses like craft manufacturing, microbreweries, micro distilleries, and of that sort. In May, if you all recall, you passed the entertainment district by resolution. So with this, the entertainment district designation supports mix of uses envisioned in a downtown Douglas to adapt to existing vacant building spaces. And essentially it relaxes the separation distance restrictions between existing schools and churches in the downtown area. This really helps promote music halls, concert facilities, theaters, arenas, stadiums, museums, studios, galleries, restaurants, bars, and other related facilities that we would like in our downtown area. Another opportunity that is available to Douglas through the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, they offer brownfields grants. So through ADEQ to transform underutilized properties from liabilities into assets that revitalize our communities and bring our neighborhoods back to life, or in this case, our downtown area. Through this grant, there's two types of grants that these brownfields programs offer. One is assessment and the other program is a cleanup. They're great opportunities for Douglas, and we have some businesses taking advantage of some of these programs already. We still need to work with some other business owners in our downtown area so we can clear up some misconceptions that they might have of the brownfields program. Some of the owners that we talked about, they have a fear of getting an assessment and the results coming back, and they have to deal with the liability of that. So we're working with downtown business owners to provide them factual information and working with ADEQ to provide all the information that's available to them. So if you may not know, in 2019, Cochise County actually was awarded $600,000 in brownfields grants. They did an assessment around the area, so we have an inventory report of what that looks like. And again, in 2022, they received an additional $500,000 that's available starting October, early October. So these programs are really great, but there's no silver bullet solution for any building downtown. So it's coming up with different options. One example is one of our business owners made it through the assessment process and really close to the cleanup process, but there's a problem, or there could be a challenge with that, because if the structural integrity is not there, but they have the opportunity to clean up, it just puts them in a position, or a challenging position, to kind of figure that situation out. So tonight I'm introducing at a high level, it's a conceptual type of program of a historic preservation program. And as Anna explained, this is something that we worked over the summer and did a lot of research, talked to various cities and coming up with something that potentially could be implemented in Douglas. So this rest of this, it's high level. And I'll go ahead and dive into it. So the Historical Preservation Program, what is it? It's the purpose of this program is to encourage the protection of historic buildings through proper rehabilitation and to revitalize a designated area. Why? One of our biggest threats to our downtown revitalization efforts is the structural integrity of these historic buildings. And I think the next slide, I'll talk about why it's such a challenge for, government and private entities when I get a chance to. And I just also wanted to add to the conversation is who are we without our downtown? These, many of us have grown up in Douglas, and one thing to know, once a building is gone, it's gone for good. So this is our efforts to really try to work on a program that will allow us to being the entity we are, a government entity. So during our research, we found 2 cities that offer a similar type program. One of these cities is West Sierra Vista Redevelopment Partnership Program, the city of Sierra Vista, and the other program is the city of Phoenix. So in the partnership program with the city of Sierra Vista, their funds are allocated by their general fund. They utilize the redevelopment area by finding of necessity. That's a type of assessment that they have in order to identify this redevelopment area. In this case, Stantec provided the finding of necessity. That was their step 1 to develop this program. Some of the categories deemed by council include new signage, ADA access, facade improvements, architectural features, seating, and murals, with some of the projects that the city manager has authority to approve them if they're a threatened building of that sort. So in this program, it's important to note that this is a matching type of grant. So the programs they have, there's reimbursement ratios up to 50%. So the business owner would have to come up with a portion of that. It's a $20,000 max per property. And in the past, they had a $50,000 allocation for this program, and it's been well received. So in the past couple of years, their mayor and council has increased it to $100,000 for this program. Now, the city of Phoenix is probably the one I think is the most interesting because they've been able to figure it out. They have a historic preservation office, and their grant programs, they're funded by a historic bond preservation. Historic preservation fund. They use an overlay district or a severely threatened building criteria guideline, so it allows them some flexibility to go outside that scope of area, but also to preserve their precious downtown buildings and homes. This is the interesting component of this program. It can be the structural rehabilitation reinforcement necessary to stabilize the building historic exterior. So it could potentially help with the structural integrity because it's preserving the exteriors of that building. This project considers anything over 10,000, and I've seen in their conservation easement ratios 400,000 and above. So City of Phoenix utilizes the conservation easement as a condition of funding. And if you'll excuse me, I just lost my spot. Okay, so how these programs function without violating Arizona state law. Arizona has a gift clause, so this is really important to know. Being a public entity, it prohibits the donation of grant of public funds to private individuals or entities unless 1, it's for a public purpose, and 2, the value to be received by the public is not grossly disproportionate to the consideration being paid by the public, which is why you'll have some matching type of funds in different programs. That's what you'll see. So with the Sierra Vista program, they use the finding of necessity to outline the redevelopment area. The redevelopment area, one thing to remember about this, it's required by state law. So in order for them to create this redevelopment area, by state law, they had to have this finding of necessity assessment conducted. There's also an area-wide plan, which City of Services doesn't look at, but it's something that we're still behind our research that we're looking at. Another thing to remember with the redevelopment area is they have some advantages. The municipality has to pass a resolution that declares them to be area of slum and blight, okay? Which a lot of businesses and property owners may not like because that impacts their property values. So that's again, a high level research that we found with this program, but just something important to know. And again, with the City of Phoenix, the conservation easement, it's a voluntary legal agreement that permanently limits the use of land in order to protect its conservation values. So at this time, if you have any questions or feedback in regards to the program, again, this was our high-level presentation about an historic preservation and going to our downtown efforts. There's a lot of legwork that goes into a lot of meetings that we've had over the summer, but this is what we have so far. If you have any questions, let me.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments from the council?
Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Lindeman, please.
I just had a question on the finding of necessity. You know, in order to facilitate these things, which entity is going to be in charge of doing the finding of necessity?
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Lindeman, I'm sorry, Mayor Hewish, Mr. Lindeman. From what I understand, Stantec, it's usually a consultant that comes on board required, again, this study is required by state law. So they're the consultants that handle the service. They're the consultants that are also present in our downtown area, conducting studies through the brownfields as well.
And that's just a construction company? Stantec?
Luis, what would you define Stantec, their business as?
Stantec are consultants and engineers.
I'm just getting to, are they qualified for this to?
Mayor, council member Lindeman. Their staffing includes, a variety of different focuses, which includes anywhere between civil infrastructure and building structures like that. So yes, Stantec is a.
And they report then to presumably the city manager? To give the report?
They report to the city, to the contracted agency that they've been hired from.
Okay. Oh, thank you.
And Mayor, if I may, Mr. Lindeman, Stantec is also the firm that Cochise County has contracted with for these grants. So this is already something that they've preserved, and they have this funding available for all of Cochise County. So we would be submitting a nomination for a project we've met with them, and the findings of necessity is very, very aligned with what they would be able to do for the city.
Can we ask them to do a finding of necessity for the Grand Hotel? Or the Grand Theater? Or any of those projects that we could do?
So the nominations are accepted by any owner, and the city, with permission of an owner, can submit a nomination, is my understanding from our research. And
Ultimately,
again, it's through the brownfields program, so it's the 2 lanes that Jennifer described. But a findings of necessity would be on the redevelopment area for historic preservation.
Well, I'm just wondering that, is there money attached with that then? And maybe we should go that route also.
So what we find is that without that type of plan or finding of necessity, we have a harder time, or we can't even apply for future funding. So just like everything, we need that 30% engineering design to 100% engineering design to be able to take that next step into that big ocean of funds that are out there, just seeing who's going to get a bite.
Thank you, Mr. Lindeman. Anyone else?
Jennifer.
Yes, Mrs. Costa. Did you have something?
Yes, sorry. Thank you. You mentioned something about classifying these buildings as slums or blight. And I'm sorry if I'm not referring to this correctly, but I'm not too educated on this. I know that affects, you mentioned that affects the property value. At some point, once this renovation takes place or whatnot, is that reverted back to getting rid of that designation for these buildings?
That's a good question. I have the entire, or most of the team in the room that may be able to answer that, and if not, we can certainly take that question and come back as a follow-up.
My guess would be it'd have to be.
Yeah, I mean, you can't,
Right.
I would hope that
Can't
it
leave
would
it sitting
remain-
there forever.
correct, remain as designated as a slum. So with this project or this, is this a proposal for us to put in, earmark some money from our general fund for next funding cycle to get a program like this started? Or is this something that we can start now, like Mr. Lindeman said, referring or letting business owners know that these programs are available so that they can start doing stuff on their own to try to get these buildings rehabbed?
Ms. Costa, the purpose of this presentation is to let us know that this is a possibility. We had some different options on how to go about funding this, and so it'll come up in the budget process to see what we can do. So does that answer?
Sure.
What were you thinking? And so that's, again, I asked for this presentation to be able to introduce this concept to the council to see if we wanted to pursue it or not.
Mayor,
Yes, please.
so that's a great question, and I would just add, Mayor, that you're absolutely correct, we could consider it in future budget cycles. But I'd like to remind you also that this current budget set aside generic, and then used for lack of a better term, monies for policy priorities. So if we are at the very conceptual stage of our research, if we come back and, council would like to start something sooner, I'm just saying you have
Good.
some opportunities in the way we laid out the current budget as well.
Yeah.
And then the public participation would be hugely important.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Mr. Shelton, did you have something?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean. No, I don't think so. I would really like, once again, to. After the meeting, or maybe you might want to adjourn, right, or go and look at all of this. Go from there.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Mr. Valdenegro.
Looking at this, going back, what exactly are we preserving downtown? Other than some buildings that are historic value, such as the Grand, the bakery building, the Brophy building, the Gadsden, and maybe the Jones building. I don't know any other building other than post office that might be historic or might be on the register of historic sites. But the streetscape, if we move with the streetscape, on one side of the street, from 9th Street all the way to 15th Street, we cover at least half of the downtown area. We improve the infrastructure of the drainage system, the lighting on one side of the street. And we still have the new and we still have the old.
Thank you, Mr. Valdenegro. Anyone else? Could you explain a little bit more about the funding mechanism for the city of Phoenix, that easement, how they fund that?
Through our research, so the city of Phoenix has the actual historic preservation office, so they have many programs. One of the programs that's kind of outlined here is their warehouse. And so back into early 2006, the city of Phoenix passed a bond that allowed the allocation of funds for this type of program. So that's really how they're funded, is through a bond. This is one of the programs that was funded that way. The other one was, I'm sorry, the other one that's up on the screen is a Vista, so they did a general fund allocation.
And then to the city of Phoenix to justify it, how do they work out that easement portion?
So the conservation easement, as I understand, is the building owner has to agree, so contractually agree that they have to conserve that building for their purposes for as long as the building stands. Mrs. Urquio, to add anything else?
Yes, thank you. The way they tier their conservation easement. So if the property owner agrees to a conservation easement of maybe 5 to 10 years, they may be only eligible for 10 to 15,000 as an example. But if they go in as far as like the 40+ years, they may be eligible for up to 400,000. That's just an example, but they tier it based on the years that they're able to agree to hold that conservation easement and conserve the historical properties of that building.
Thank you. Any other questions from the council? Do you have anybody from the public that would like to speak to us? Thank you. Mr. Hefferich, please.
Steve Helfrich, 1303 F Avenue, Douglas, Arizona, 85607. Where do we start? I went through the Brownsville grant on my property at 1225 G, just north of Divorce. And I had a really good, I've worked with Stantec for 20 years. I liked them. I worked with them when they were local, and now they're national. I like what they did. They came in, they were very professional. There was possible tanks and contamination on the site. They basically did a study, and then wrote me a letter saying that there was no contamination. And then beyond that, the letter basically relieved me of any responsibility for prior contamination. And that's what people need to, I think that's what people need to understand, is that it's people going forward that the landowner is not responsible for the remediation. And anybody you want to send my way, we can talk about it. That's good. And I don't think you should be afraid of that. The thing about the schematic design or construction documents for the bid from J2, were they saying another 80,000 for completion of schematic design, or is that completion through CDs? Because typically schematic design was only 25% of the fees. So beyond that, when you go into construction documents, you'll have all the engineers. So that fee they're talking about may be closer to 500,000 beyond their fee. So that's a good clarification for you guys. I want to apologize. I'm very passionate about architecture, and I love architecture. I love art. We have a wonderful opportunity. Let's just see if we can regroup and make some sense of it and move forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anything else from the council? We'll go to item number 5, adjournment. May I have a motion?
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Shelton, second by Mr. Cosa to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? The ayes have it. We stand adjourned at 7:49.
Thank you, Dennis.
Thanks a lot. You guys have a good night.